The time has come to talk full-on spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. What's going on, guys? I'm Chris, and welcome back to another video. I'm joined by my lovely lady friend, Cam.
Fantastic to be here.
It's great to be here because
love when I get to be on your channel.
Yes, I love
so
it too.
Fun.
We're talking full-fledged spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. If you haven't seen the movie, click away from this video immediately because we're going to be diving into every cameo, every huge reveal, every big plot point, all that jazz.
Yeah.
So you've been warned, but if you haven't watched it yet, hit the like button, come back, or just stay tuned. You know, if you want to get spoiled, proceed at your own risk. But yeah, we have a podcast episode that's dropping this week where we talk about Deadpool and Wolverine non-spoilers. Check that out. Link down below to our channel, The Unusual Couple Podcast. But we're talking spoilers today. We saw this movie twice already.
Yes.
We saw it on the 22nd at a press screening. We saw it that Thursday at just an early regular screening.
Yeah.
And I love it. I have it at a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It's one of my favorite movies. It is my favorite movie of the year, and you quite like it as well.
Yeah, I have it at 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Fair.
But I also 4 out of 5 is like a really high score for me.
Valid. So where we're both coming from is we both quite like this movie.
Yeah.
If we're talking spoilers, there are a lot of things I want to go through. A lot. I don't know if should we just detail the whole movie through and through?
Yeah, I think that's the best
Everyone
way to do
watching has seen it, so you might as well just we'll
Best
go in
way to do it.
chronological order. That's the easiest way to do it. All right. So starting at the bottom. Now we're here.
Oh.
I almost went full on lyrics there. Starting at the beginning of this movie,
Phenomenal
from the
opening.
Yeah, from the opening, it lets you know, hey,
Phenomenal opening.
this is a Deadpool movie. It's in the MCU. It's violent as hell. You've got Deadpool digging up Logan, old man Logan, who's dead, his corpse from Logan, and basically
cool to see his
killing
corpse.
TVA agents with it.
Yeah.
It was cool to see the adamantium,
It was
skeleton.
cool. It was bloody. It was really cool fight choreography. And as somebody who loves pop culture,
Yeah.
the cuts to the dancing to Bye 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 by
Yeah.
NSYNC literally had me almost standing up in the theater.
Which I thought it was Ryan Reynolds when I first watched, but it is the double.
Crushed that it's not,
Yeah.
but the dancing was a little too good to be Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Like, in my head, I knew that it wasn't him because it was just really good dancing.
Yeah. I mean,
really phenomenal.
It was, and I've seen the BTS video. You've probably all seen it as well on social media making the rounds. The guy killed it.
Yeah, crushed
Arguably
it.
better than NSYNC, some are saying.
Oh, not arguably.
Is?
Is.
Is.
Like, if you, there's a side-by-side of Deadpool in the movie and NSYNC doing the dance, like, on stage in their concert, like, in whenever that concert was, and it's embarrassing for NSYNC,
Yeah.
borderline.
So yeah, after the cool opening sequence, we actually find out that Wade went back to the sacred timeline at the end of Deadpool 2 with Cable's
Yeah.
device, and he has a conversation with the first cameo, Happy Hogan.
Yes.
Happy Hogan's in this film, and basically, it's like he's there to placehold for an MCU character.
Yeah.
But Deadpool was at that time in his life, this was in March of 2018 in the universe, he wants to be an Avenger. And so he's like applying to be an Avenger. You leaned over to me and you were like, in 2018,
Anyone's alive.
anyone's alive. And I'm like, yeah, fair game. I wonder
game.
anyone could have showed up in that scene, but it was just Happy Hogan. All that was to establish that Wade at that point and still wants to be part of something greater, wants to be bigger than himself.
Yeah.
Wade has a birthday party and he's being monitored by the TVA.
We've all seen this.
We've all seen this in the trailer, the
trailers.
setup.
Like, they literally showed this whole episode. This whole episode?
Yeah.
This whole part of the movie.
Yeah, pegging, that's new for Disney, but not for me.
That was all in the trailers.
All that is the brief setup, and then he ends up getting taken to the TVA.
TVA snatches his wig.
Yep, and we see Mr. Paradox, played by Matthew McFadden of Succession fame, a show I still haven't
Which
seen.
I've recently learned. Same actor who plays Mr. Darcy. Gagged.
Ooh, in that Pride and Prejudice film? Yeah, I haven't seen that one. Haven't seen it.
I know you haven't.
But anyway, there's this elaborate plot, not really, laid out, where in the Fox timeline, okay?
Yes.
The timeline Deadpool takes place in the timeline of Logan. The anchor being died. When an
Yes.
anchor being dies, it could take up to 1,000 years, but a universe is slowly going to dwindle away and ultimately be destroyed. In the Fox timeline, Logan is that anchor being, and he obviously died at the end of Logan when he made a sacrifice. That is sort of the catalyst, if you will,
Yes.
of the film.
And the whole plot of this film, so like they established the point that when an anchor being dies, it can take over 1,000 years for the timeline to dwindle out.
Yep.
So it's not an immediate threat.
Not at all.
However, Paradox is like, I don't want to waste 1,000 years of my life watching your timeline disappear because I've been tasked with being in charge of your timeline. I'm going to speed this up actually right away. I'm going to use a time ripper.
Little device called a timer ripper.
And I'm going to get rid of your timeline in the next 72 hours. Hate to break it to you. Do you want to go to the sacred timeline? Because you're too important to evaporate. And Deadpool's like, what about my friends?
Yeah.
What about the only people in my life that I love and care about?
Which I found quite funny that in that moment where Paradox tells Deadpool, like, you're too important, we see like a future vision of Thor holding Deadpool, parodying like Loki's death in Thor the Dark World, and we're like, is that actually setting him up to return at some point?
Yeah.
And I think they definitely laid the seeds for like Deadpool to return,
Paradox
which we'll talk about at the end of the movie.
But, we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves there.
It's like, what could be? But no, I think too, before we move on, anchor being established, Tony Stark, especially on round 2, we talked about that. We were like, Tony probably the anchor being of the MCU sacred timeline. You would have to think, right?
Tony makes the most sense, and since it's not something it can take over 1,000 years for that to even cause any effect in the sacred timeline. It's not like an immediate thing they have to discuss, but I do think the only anchor being that makes sense and would be Tony Stark.
And someone could have ulterior motives to want to, speed up that process of destroying the sacred timeline. That could be introduced in Doomsday or Secret Wars.
Yeah.
So that's all stuff we'll talk about later. But Deadpool gets the bright idea then, where he's like, well, I'm just going to find my own Wolverine.
Yeah.
And so he goes through this epic montage, seeing a bunch of different variants of Wolverine.
Finds a
comically short king, and then the standout, another big cameo, an actual cameo, Henry Cavill is one of these Wolverines, which when I saw it, I was like, holy shit. Does that mean he's going to be playing Wolverine in the MCU after Jackman? But then I went, the MCU's done this before with Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. So it's either one of two things. They're playing into the online fan theories, or he's going to be the next Wolverine. What do you think?
I think it's hard to say. I feel like Henry Cavill might be best for him to maybe just sit out of big franchises. He's been screwed over many a time by many a franchise. Obviously, DC, they stopped his Superman. The Witcher, he's been screwed out of that franchise. He just had a kid. He's a dad now. Maybe he's not looking to get into a big franchise. Maybe he just did this for the shits and gigs of it. Yeah.
And a little bag of money.
Yeah.
But no, I think I really want him to be Wolverine. I liked what we saw. He would dominate in that role, I think. But you're right. He might want to step away. The best part about this was the straight up shots fired at the DCEU.
Very funny.
He was like,
we'll treat you better than those guys
down the street. I was like, that is awesome.
Very funny.
Man, that was awesome. But he ends up finding a Wolverine who's down on his luck, depressed, drinking at a bar. And there's even a moment where he like chugs a bottle of, I think it's like Jim Beam or Jack Daniels. And then Deadpool makes like a fourth wall break where he's like, it's okay. Audiences are accustomed to long run times.
Yeah, very funny.
There were just constant quips like that worked. Then we obviously get the scene that plays out in the trailer. But he ends up taking this Wolverine back. And he's like, oh, look at these pajamas.
Yeah.
Fans have only waited for that for 20 years.
Which I think it's really interesting that this Wolverine was just like wearing his suit underneath his normal clothes.
Very Superman.
That's like how, but that's how sad he was. That's how sad he was. Because he wore that suit for his X-Men in his universe that died, which we learn about.
Yeah, we learn about that.
He's the worst Logan, we find out. Paradox is like, okay, you can't replace an anchor being, but even if you could, like, you picked your worst possible option with this Logan. He sucks. He let his entire X-Men family die in his universe, and now he's just a drunk nobody, apparently.
He's a down on his luck drunk. This pisses off Deadpool, so he's gonna I'm gonna end this thing. Gets pruned.
Yep, he gets
pruned.
And
who else gets pruned? Wolverine.
So where are they?
They're in the void.
Exactly.
And we see the 20th century logo in the back, which is just hilarious. That was leaked a while ago.
Long time ago.
Long time ago.
Crazy that certain things from that scene were leaked and certain things weren't leaked. I don't know how they got away with that.
I agree.
But they are in the void. They fight in front of the 20th century
And they don't just fight
Fox.
now. This is the best fight scene in the movie to me.
Really?
Yes. This is the one that's burned into my brain forever. This is the best fight scene in the movie.
You've got top 3 for me.
It's my favorite by far. It's so awesome. And Hell's Bell starts playing by AC/DC, and that's when I knew. I was like, I perked up. I was like, oh. And then Deadpool looks at Cameron, he's like, nerd, you might want to get your special sock ready. It's going to get good. And I was like, woo! I got fired up for that. And then Wolverine charges him, dives into him. They're stabbing each other, shooting him. It's the best. I loved it.
I want to say this. I noticed this on my second watch. Now, I haven't seen every X-Men movie. I'll let you guys know that right now. I haven't seen Logan. Everyone gasped. I know. Seeing Hugh Jackman, like, I think this is like the most I've ever seen him be Wolverine out of all the X-Men movies I've seen. It very much shows how much of a theater kid Hugh Jackman is to me. The way that he goes into his little Wolverine fighting stance, like so low to the ground, and like he hits it really well. And every time he did it in the movie, I was like, he's such a theater kid.
Yeah,
this is such a theater kid way to do this.
He gave us that let's go.
Like he was into it.
Man, I was in. Whew. Beautiful scene. I can't wait to watch. That's the one in my regular review. I was like, in my regular review, there's a fight scene. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this one all the time just to get jazzed.
That's me with the first.
That's the one.
That's me with the opening scene.
Yeah, fair. But that's the first big fight of the movie, and then ultimately it ends after they kind of kick each other's ass for a bit, and there's a figure near them who says something. You're like, who's that? Very recognizable voice. And then we see some figure with like a blue sleeve. They're wearing like a sort of beaten down hood. And it's Chris Evans, right? Who's Chris Evans? Chris Evans is Captain America.
He has his Captain America voice on it first.
He does.
The music playing behind him is very Captain America coded. Like there's trumpets. It sounds very heroic. Deadpool is leading into it. He's like, oh my God, sir, it's so nice to see you here. Yeah. I'm a big fan. He's going to say it. Oh my God, he's going to say it. Avengers Assemble. Yep. And then Chris Evans goes,
Flame on.
Flame on.
It's Johnny Storm from
rips off his little hoodie and flies up in the air, and he's on fire. And
we see Johnny Storm, and of course he tries to fight some of Cassandra Nova's like little goons that pull up, some of the other X-Men villains and all that.
F tier, comic
irrelevant
villains.
To me.
Sabretooth.
Yeah.
What's the other guy's name?
I think Toad's one of them.
Pyro.
Yeah, okay. It's like, who really cares? I mean, honestly, we're just here to see Johnny Storm. But
can I tell you my thoughts on the cameo?
Sure.
Can I share my thoughts?
Please do.
Initial thoughts. Right? Okay. Everything I'm about to say, I want to preface it by letting you guys know I had fun. I was laughing. Mm-hmm. I was giggling. I thought that it was a really fun and great cameo.
Yeah.
Now that I've prefaced that, I need you to keep in mind with what I'm going to say next. I'm done with it.
Okay.
Chris Evans, this is the last time I want to see you in a Marvel project.
And it won't be the last time
I don't want to see him anymore.
He will be back.
Chris Evans showing up in this movie is a double-edged sword for me. You know it. Either he shows up and he's Captain America and it f***s over Sam Wilson for me. Sam Wilson is one of my favorite Marvel characters of all time, right? So I didn't want him to show up as Captain America. I never want to see him as Captain America again. The lesser of two evils for me was Johnny Storm, so that's why I'm fine with it. But the other edge of the sword is him showing up as Johnny Storm, and Joseph Quinn is one of my favorite actors. And I feel like, in a way, it kind of is going to ruin Joseph Quinn being Johnny Storm. Like, there are going to be people that pull up Chris Evans in this movie as Johnny Storm because it's recent. And they're going to say, oh, Chris Evans did it better, blah, blah, blah. Chris Evans did it better last year. Like, when when Joseph Quinn's Johnny Storm comes out, because everyone is so judgmental about it already and you haven't even seen it. Mm-hmm. So I do feel like it kind of makes it harder for Joseph Quinn to create his Johnny Storm within the Marvel fandom. So it's a double-edged sword for me. Either way, one of my favorite actors / characters is getting screwed over, if you will. But I'm good.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it because in the next scene, he gets skinned alive by Cassandra Nova. So we will not be seeing Johnny Storm again anytime soon. At least this version. We'll see Joseph Quinn next year, which is very cool. But yeah, then they go to Cassandra Nova. They have this big showdown. They end up escaping.
We see that in trailers too. You know, the whole Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Skeleton.
I guess
Paul Rudd finally aged. We saw that in trailers. You guys know what that is.
So yeah, they escape, and then they see Dogpool after escaping.
He's so sweet.
Yeah, and there's the nice pool, obviously played by Ryan Reynolds.
Very funny.
Very Canadian hipster.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry
almost like
about
surfer boy.
So funny.
But he gives them a ride in a Honda Odyssey, which is a funny little callback to earlier because Deadpool's working at a car lot with Peter. Mm-hmm. That leads into a very whoa moment where Hugh Jackman's Wolverine lights in to Deadpool. I've seen the scene making the rounds on social media. I mean, he goes off on him.
Harsh words.
Yeah, and the only way they can resolve that is by fighting it out for a long time until they pass out in the van.
That's my second favorite fight scene.
That's a cool one, but I still, obviously, you know what my favorite is.
That's fine, yeah. I do wish that they had more of The Greatest Showman in it. Mm-hmm. I think them releasing the soundtrack early kind of was a bad idea, actually. I think I would have been really excited to hear the tiny little snippet of Greatest Showman at the theater and be like, oh my God. But seeing the soundtrack before the movie came out, I was thinking oh my God, we're going to find a version of Hugh Jackman singing and dancing to The Greatest Showman. This is going to be so funny. Yeah. I was expecting Hugh Jackman to sing at one point because Deadpool even made jokes about Wolverine singing, and it didn't happen, which made me kind of sad.
Anyway, they pass out in the van, then the next morning, someone picks them up in the van. We don't know who it is, though, do we? They go to a location. They have no clue where they are. Obviously, Wolverine goes for the liquor, and he's drinking that up. and enter Cameo Fest, also just supporting actors that weren't announced in the movie. They're more than cameos to me. They're
One of them we knew about.
One of them we did know about. Two of them before the movie came out, technically, because of a trailer that revealed.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Really?
Yeah, I'll tell you who in a second. But the first person to walk on screen.
Oh, okay. I follow.
Yeah, the first person to walk on screen, correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer Garner as Elektra, which
Correct.
we did know about for a while. Like that was like
got
official.
announced like a year ago.
That was announced a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like on Variety, like a legit trade announced that, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So Jennifer Garner's Elektra pulls up. I'm like, okay. And then the music starts.
The music is sick as fuck,
The
by the
music
way.
is super epic, and you're kind of like, okay, this is definitely the start of a intro fest to these new characters. Then we get Blade, played by Wesley Snipes, which was huge for a lot of people. I've actually never seen the Blade movies. Obviously, I'm familiar with Wesley Snipes as Blade, but I was like, oh, that's dope. Then we get...
Probably the best one out of the four.
Yeah, then we get the best out of the four. Channing Tatum is Gambit.
So funny.
Yes. I mean, he is the best supporting character in this movie.
So cool to see. Really fun for people that are like fans of Marvel and like understand Marvel lore, right? Because like, you know, you've explained it to me.
They were going to make a Gambit movie. He was officially announced as Gambit. It just never happened. It was basically in development hell, like how Blade is right now. It was like that kind of.
Yes.
And then like the rights kind of fell through. It fell through because of the whole Disney buying Fox thing. It just got really complicated at the end of the day.
So sad.
Never happened, but it was always about to.
And then the fourth and final little cameo that we knew about from a trailer is X-23.
Yes. Laura from Logan, and she's older now, obviously. I don't know why they put that in the trailer. I saw that tweet that was like...
they explained it. She was like, I literally want to go to the premiere. And so, I mean, that's fine, honestly. When they explained it, I was like, I'm not mad about it anymore. That makes sense.
She could have just gone to the premiere.
No, it would have. People would have been like, oh my God, she's in it.
Yeah, but I mean,
like
that
Andrew
wouldn't have
Garfield
gotten out
going
as
to the
wide as a damn trailer, you know? Someone at the premiere, okay, that could get out the week the movie comes out, but like a trailer's going to have way more eyes on it. Not everyone's going to see that she was at a premiere.
I know.
In my opinion.
I know.
And people have to realize it's not like the trailer's on YouTube, everything, not just Twitter.
I think in the grand scheme of things, her being in the trailer was not that.
It wasn't that big of a deal. It's just a little irritating to me.
I guess. But so all four of these guys are kind of, I think they literally just call them the others. That's what they call them in the void. Yeah. Because Paradox at a certain point is like, has he found the others? To Pyro, I want to say. And Deadpool's like, okay, I'm in. I want to join your team. But the funniest bit in this whole scene is like, there's lots of funny bits. Yeah. You know, like they talk about Magneto being dead, and they talk about Daredevil being dead, and then Jennifer Garner's like, it's okay. Both being a joke at the fact that Ben Affleck's Daredevil sucks, and also they're divorced.
They're divorced, yeah.
Very funny.
Very.
But the biggest bit and the funniest bit is Gambit's voice.
Oh my God, yeah, inaudible. You can literally, like, you can hear him, but you can't make out a word he's saying half the time.
You can tell
it's so funny.
Supposed to be hilarious that he just sounds borderline incoherent.
Correct.
It's a crazy accent. It switches every sentence. It sounds different. Deadpool makes a really funny joke where he's like, sweetheart, I want this to be gentle. Who is your dialect coach?
Yeah, it was so funny.
So funny.
I mean, laughing out loud both times. That's the best running gag in the movie for sure.
Channing Tatum is a hilarious actor.
Oh, yeah,
like,
he
is born to make me
We saw this in the Jump Street films. I mean, he just, we need 23 Jump Street, especially after this. I hope he gets it finally. But they end up going to Cassandra Nova's after we get a little sweet scene with Wolverine opening up to Laura at the campfire where he tells what we talked about earlier. He went to get drunk, and while he was gone, the X-Men got wiped away.
Yes, we get a little bit more details and background on the general gist of this Wolverine's background that we learned earlier in the movie.
Correct.
So it explains it in a little bit more detail, which I've seen people complain that they didn't like explain what happened in this Wolverine's universe enough. And that it was confusing.
Well, I don't think he would want to revisit that in too much gruesome detail.
I also disagree. Like, they explained it just enough where it's like, you get the gist of what happened to him. You get the gist that it was a very awful thing.
Traumatic.
And that he feels like it's his fault completely. You don't need to harp on it for too long when that's not the point of this movie. If they wanted to make a movie about what happened, they'd make a movie about this Wolverine. Yeah. That's not what the point is. They gave you just enough to get the gist across that he's traumatized, he's depressed, and he feels like it's all his fault. Yeah. They gave you the gist. Correct. And that's all you need. You don't need to see. I saw people saying they wanted a flashback. They wanted to physically see The
I think
X-Men
it's better
getting
that the
killed.
picture was painted for us as the audience. It's like in a horror. It's like in Jaws. Like we don't need to see the shark killing someone every single time. It's scarier in your head. It's like whatever you can envision happening in your head is worse than like we don't need to see it painted out anyway. They go to Cassandra Nova's. Their whole plan is to get Juggernaut's helmet and put it on her.
Yes.
And we get another badass action scene,
Really
which
fun.
is one of the coolest shots in the movie. Is everyone getting out of the van? Wolverine gets out last. And
It's just
so
a fun
sick.
badass moment.
It's so awesome.
It's just fun.
Yeah, and Gambit's like, I'm about to make a name for myself.
He's so stupid.
He's so dumb. I thought he was about to get killed when he did that the first time.
But his powers are so cool.
Oh, yeah.
They did them phenomenally.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna die though when he
Boom.
he walked out first, and I was like, he's about to get snapped, isn't he? Or like he's about to get his skin peeled off.
No, they let all of them shine. I
yeah.
thought it was a beautiful tribute to all these characters that either people have like on or never really got their moment. Before they even get to Cassandra Nova's, they of course make light of the fact that the Gambit movie never happened. They also make light of the fact that the new Blade movie has been in production hell for years because Wesley Snipes' Blade is like, there's only ever going to be one Blade.
And it's like it's on the nose.
Unfortunately, it might be true.
Yeah, there's never going to be a Mahershala Blade movie, I don't think, at this rate.
Yeah.
So that was very funny. And then we get the whole action scene. They end up fighting Cassandra Nova, and she gets shot by Pyro when she has the helmet on.
Yeah, I really like the scene where Cassandra Nova is in Logan's head. And, like, she's like, I can silence these voices for you. And then, like, the whole scene goes silent. Like,
Yeah, you could hear a pin drop in the theater then.
Really well done scene.
See, there are plenty of, like, serious moments, not just all comedy in the movie.
Hugh Jackman gave a really great performance in those scenes specifically.
Absolutely.
Like, you can see his pain. You can hear the screams of the X-Men. Like, if at this point you don't get what happened to this Logan and this Wolverine, I don't know what to tell you. Marvel can't hold your hand, babe.
No, they can't. And they're actually trusting the audience, which is something people complain about them not doing. So ultimately, in that scene, they let Cassandra go because Wolverine talks about Charles Xavier being her brother and how he was doing it for Charles. He would go to the ends of the earth to find you, blah, blah, blah. They get out with a sling ring. How cool is that?
Crazy.
Yeah. I guess a sorcerer, a amateur magician, if you will, came by, and that's how Cassandra got the sling ring, and they end up going through a portal, slow-mo, of course. That leads into another awesome action scene. Where does this one place for you? Wolverine and Deadpool versus all the Deadpool variants.
Probably 4.
4? Okay.
Out of the 4 we've done so far.
I think it's probably 2 for me. It's so sick. And it's like a dot, like boom. It's just one continuous take of them destroying all the Deadpool variants.
I think it would be higher if these two, like if they didn't do these two things. Number one, it cuts away once to go to Blind Owl up top saying something. I wish it was just one continual take.
That doesn't bother me.
Her line could have been at the end. And
I thought it was hilarious in the middle.
There's a moment where like it's still one take, but like all the Deadpools are off screen. I wish it was like one continuous take, like genuinely beating them up the whole time.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
I thought it was funny how the camera got ahead of it.
It is funny. It would be higher in terms of a fight scene.
Interesting. I love the end of that fight when we see them jump out of the bus and they strike their poses. I've seen people bitch about that though, and they're like, Wolverine looks like an NPC CGI for 10 seconds.
A little bit funny.
And I'm like,
I never noticed that until
I noticed
pointed
it,
it out.
but it's like,
who cares?
I just don't care that much about that.
Once they fight all the Deadpools, we're really in the home stretch of the film now. Cassandra Nova comes through the portal. She takes Paradox down, and she wants to use the Time Ripper for herself. She wants to get rid of every timeline ever so that it's just the Void, and she's in charge of everybody, and she's queen of the universe pretty much. And obviously Deadpool and Wolverine stop her. They use the power of friendship and love, and they survive. And Hugh Jackman gets to be shirtless, which is really, really fun and cool to see.
Yeah, and like if anyone's mad about them like not dying, their superpower is regeneration, so that's obvious. And because there were 2 of them instead of one of them just doing it, that's how they were able to sort of stay alive while they destroy the Time Ripper.
The movie ends with Deadpool back with his friends up in his apartment. His timeline is saved. Logan, like, helping Deadpool at the end, like, helped regenerate this timeline. And this Wolverine is now, like, they successfully replaced the anchor being of this timeline, which is something that B-15, a character from Loki, is like shocked, and she's like, wow, I can't believe you did this. And one of the most beautiful moments of the movie is towards the end where Deadpool is like, he asks if she can get some people out of the Void that helped them, i.e., Elektra, Blade, Gambit, and X-23. And then he also says this Wolverine, did some things in his timeline that he's not proud of. Can we fix it? Can we go back and can we change it? And B-15 is like, the things that happened in this Wolverine's timeline is what made him the Wolverine that he is now that saved your timeline. There's nothing to fix in his timeline. It's not a mistake. Yeah. It made him who he is. It's a very beautiful sentiment.
I thought it was beautiful. It reminded me of The Lion King. I said this in my review when it's like, the past can hurt, but you can either run from it or learn from it.
Very good point.
I said that in my review of the film. My
Very good point. Yep. Yeah, it's a really good like notion. It really wraps up this Wolverine's like arc
their arcs
within
come
this
full
movie.
circle. Yeah, beautiful for both Deadpool and Wolverine in this movie. You're correct.
Deadpool saves his timeline. Wolverine finally accepts what happens to him, and now he's in this timeline where he has a friend, and by the end we see they get X-23 out of the void, so he has X-23, and they're all hanging out in Deadpool's apartment, and it's just like a good happy ending, and the arcs are wrapped up and everyone's good.
Yeah, it's a beautiful ending, and then we get a nice montage of like the behind the scenes of all the Fox Marvel films, from Fantastic Four to Blade to all the X-Men films. It was very sweet, to say the least. Sweet. And in the post-credit scene, we see Johnny Storm yet again, and we see that he actually was in fact saying all those mean things about Cassandra Nova, which was hilarious just to see him go on a rant in a Boston accent pretty much.
It's very funny because like Chris Evans as Johnny Storm in this movie was really just Chris Evans. Like he really had a Boston accent. Yeah. He didn't really sound like the Johnny Storm that he is in his Fantastic Four movie. He looked like Chris Evans and he sounded like Chris Evans. Yeah. He just had a costume on, which is kind of funny.
So all in all, that's pretty much the spoilery gist of it. I mean, you guys have seen the movie. You know what happens.
Long story short,
I loved the movie. And
it had great action.
Yeah.
Really, really funny. Great humor and great Deadpool humor. Yes. And also, I think that the two main characters of Deadpool and Wolverine had really great arcs, and they were wrapped up really well. I think that the movie had a great sentiment to it, and there were many emotional scenes scattered within the humor of these movies, which is what a Deadpool movie is. It's mostly humor, but it's got these deep-rooted emotions.
Yep. I mean, the soundtrack bang. I mean, all around, I loved this movie. It was nice to like discuss the cameos and what actually happens here. But yeah, I quite enjoyed it. Lots of other Marvel content if you guys haven't checked it out already. We talk about it more in the podcast, The Unusual Couple, which is linked down below. But that does it for our spoiler review of Deadpool and Wolverine. Of course, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Thank you for joining me, Cam. Go subscribe to her channel, link down below. And yeah, Deadpool and Wolverine, see it. It's going to make $1 billion. It's going to crush it. I'm very happy to say that. But until next time, see you guys later.